Okay, so I really have zero plan for how I'm doing this. Hi everyone. I am going to be playing with my blobos today, as we call them in the business. Basically, yeah, so you might have noticed from the fact I did a Halloween special on the Broken Script that it's kind of a big deal for me. So, yeah, pretty much over the last couple months, myself and three other folks on the internet, mostly over on the Tumblr, tumblr.com. If you guys know anything about that, it's basically like a blogging place. It's pretty cool. Anyway, we've been creating a sort of extended lore, if you will, for the Broken Script. And so tonight, I just want to I don't know, I guess use these pictures. I've got a couple more down here that will become relevant later to explain to some extent, in some sense of clarity, the lore. Now, I actually haven't got all of them here, so give me 2 seconds and I'll go and get the rest. Okay, so there's about 15 minutes of stuff that I'm gonna have to cut out, but basically, I guess to start with, I'm gonna give a quick once over of the approximate lore of the Broken Script. So here we have a fairly general set of like the main characters in the Broken Script. So we have the players on a faction server that I'm just gonna call World 2, because that's the only name we really have for it in the lore. So we have Ram to Die, which is going to be this guy. Wire 4 is going to be important. That's this one. It's going to come up with. And DiXE 412. They're the main members of the clan. Don't worry about this guy for now. He's a original character. We'll just put him off to the side. And then we have a second clan on the server, which is I'm going to call the Cave Base clan because they live in a cave base. We have Overlord, which apparently, according to the fandom wiki, this was probably Overlord's skin. Sorry, this was probably Blackout skin, the leader of the clan build, not Blackout. This is the skin I've decided to use for Overlord. And this is going to be our stand-in for Catfish 12, because I'm not entirely sure what happened to Catfish 12. I know I got slimed out, because, spoiler alert, all these kids get slimed out. There's a lot of kids getting slimed out by these dudes. So, over here on like our bad guys side, I guess, Void Entities, we have Integrity, who's like the big boss dude, I guess. We have the Broken End, and we have Circuit. So, basically, at some point in 2018, around November 2018, I guess Integrity pulls up to the server, starts messing mostly with Ram to Die. Eventually, Ram to Die gets got, probably replaced by Circuit for a while. DiXD gets corrupted by listening to Disc 13 a ton. And so at this point, these two are like out of the picture. And yeah, Integrity in particular gets Ram to Die. And then Circuit, because Circuit can mimic stuff a bit, Circuit pretends to be Ram to Die to get in. Eventually, this culminates with Wire 4 and the Broken End, as far as I can tell, or maybe Integrity, having a sort of like final showdown of sorts on the roof of the clan build, like these guys and Wire's main base, which probably ends up with him getting corrupted. But for the sake of this, I'm going to say it was, give me 2 seconds. It was probably saved by this guy, Revuxor. Revuxor, I think, was another player that was gotten by the Void Entities at some point and was absolutely, like, actually killed in real life by Circuit and then dragged back into the game. So Revuxor probably saved Wire, I think, at some point, possibly last minute, but that might be getting more into our lore. So yeah, Revuxor's sort of on the good guys So that's like basic the broken script lore. Void entities kill kids on a faction server, and then you show up. That's more or less it. Ram to Die gets shattered into like a bunch of different fragments, like the actual Ram to Die fragment, Null, probably a couple others. Wire is almost completely unaccounted for, as is Catfish and Overlord. Blackout turns into, don't worry about those guys down there, this thing, which is known as a Hetzer, which will probably get really confusing later, but you'll see why. So that's pretty much the state of play for the start of the Broken November lore. So let's just rewind, and I guess I'll yeah, go from the start of how this lore works. So pretty much Revuxor gets curb stomped by Circuit. That's about the first thing we can confirm happens. Technically, there's a part of the Mark 101 ARG. I'm not sure exactly how much, but a decent bit happens involving another void entity known as 16-point asterisk, or just asterisk, I'm going to call it for the sake of this video. Asterisk, I'm not 100% sure, is technically part of the void entities, considers Circuit like a sibling, and the broken ended integrity a father figure. Basically really hates being in the void and desperately wants to not be there.
I'm gonna crash out.
So Asterix is sort of on the good guys team, but still very much doesn't hate the void entities, but also doesn't really like being in the void. So we'll leave Asterix for a moment and we'll get back to the clan. First thing you'll notice about this lineup is we have a new clan member. This clan member username is PBA Money of some sort, or just Dylan is how I'll be referring to him for the rest of it. Dylan is a clan member. At some point before Integrity and that showed up, Dylan went offline for a while, so he probably missed it. And this is where I'm getting heavily into headcanoning and not just adding lore. I think that probably Wire definitely would have noticed something was up, but was probably not online for the main part of when these two got gotten and turned into, well, the forms that they're in here. So all that happened. Wire logs on, and Integrity or whoever is on the roof, and they have like their little showdown and whatever. And then Revuxor shows up just before Integrity can fully get Wire. I've got like this whole system planned out in my head for how Integrity or whatever sucks people into the game. It's really heavily based off the Server Blight series, if you guys have ever seen that. I've got a whole Google document written up for how the assimilation process works, but basically Revuxor interrupts that, which leaves Wire not stuck in the world and not corrupted like all the other people, but still kind of stuck in Minecraft and not attached to his physical body, which means he looks like this now. So this is Wire now. Everyone say hi to Wire. But yeah, during this, like I said, Blackout is now a Hetzer. Catfish is kind of an unknown variable. Overlord, probably gets it pretty bad, I think. Ends up looking like this. Overlord's not a massive player yet in the lore, but she's here. Yeah. So, I think that's where we're probably going to leave the World 2 stuff for now, because I think at this point is probably where we jump over to the lore of the Hetzercraft Tumblr blog not with Hetzercraft. I know this is where it gets kind of confusing because we've got Hetzercraft, and then we've also got Hetzer, like this one. Anyway, so this is, I couldn't find the Minecraft skin head, so this is the character ref sheet for Archer, or Arch Enemy, who is the real person that creates the Hetzercraft blog. Basically, at some point, Archer and Integrity meet, have an encounter. Archer is all like, yo, I should probably create like an AI or something to investigate this further. Integrity's all like, oh, wow, this person's weird. I should like kill them and study them or whatever. But anyway, so Archer goes away for a while and comes back and creates Hetzercraft. Hetzercraft is basically an AI designed to explore the broken script, walks around for a bit in their own world, has encounters with various entities, eventually ends up in World 2, like the actual World 2 save, where all these people was, has several encounters with the Broken End, which ultimately culminates with one in the end. Oh, and also Null slash Ram, obviously, in which results in Hetzercraft ending up in the void, basically, or an area of the void known as admin space, and basically getting corrupted and turning into this design of Hetzer, which is pretty much the salvaged code of Hetzercraft, not the body. The body will turn into this, but we'll get to that in a second. Basically, after the Broken End does all the corrupting, Hetzer decides that it wants to be real. So breaches into Archer, and now they kind of like share a body. And it's cool. And they're both chill with it, thankfully. So after this point, they kind of go on to like deal with. Hetzer goes and does a bunch of stuff with No Moon. There's some stuff ongoing, but we'll get back to that in a second. Anyway, so now that brings us back around to Wire, which is the character I've been playing around with the most. Wire is my little brain son, you know. So basically, Wire kind of being stuck in Minecraft is kind of like going around, having like figuring out what on earth to do with himself, changes his username at some point, basically goes around hopping servers for a while, and eventually decides to lock in and try and save his friends. Mostly Ram, because Ram and Wire were like best buddies, maybe even brothers. I haven't really decided yet. So basically, Wire pulls back up to worlds affected by the broken script, or I call it the integrity anomaly cluster. Ends up getting in contact with Asterix and Hetzer through their respective Tumblr accounts. Real convenient, I know. But yeah, anyway, Wire's busy like exploring and stuff. Eventually, Wire has like a whole bunch of stuff goes on. Wire, and this will be important, Wire sees the Hetzer breach incident, it's referred to, on November 5th, and is pretty interested in that because that's an example of someone escaping the broken script. Wire also has this whole bit where he like goes off and gets guns and shoots Integrity, but it doesn't really work, so he just goes back to his original world and keeps investigating and stuff. But also, the Hetzer breach incident happens on November 5th, which is conveniently a similar time to when Dylan, who at some point had also come back to World 2 and was doing some investigating, running an Ask blog, just generally trying to survive after becoming stuck in the server, has a run-in with Integrity himself and ends up getting corrupted, basically using his gun mods to go out on his own terms in-game. And also starts being referred to as Guardian. I think there's a bit of being helped by possibly another unknown void entity. Possibly. Not 100% on that. But Dylan now looks like this, goes around basically shooting entities with guns and stuff, and is primarily working towards trying to get everyone, so himself, Wire, Hetzer, and Asterix, onto one world to kind of like, combine powers and do stuff. So the combined Hetzer breach incident with Dylan having his encounter with Integrity led to basically November 5th being referred to as Broken November, which ended up just becoming the name of like the lore as a whole. Also, at some point, Wire makes this banner, which basically just becomes the logo. So, moving back on, Asterix does a lot of things during this time, is primarily jumping between weak worlds, which basically refers to a world that is easy to access from the void. So it could have void holes, could just generally be weak. I don't know why Hetzer's still on here, or old Hetzer. To be honest, I don't. You know what? It's late. I'm just rambling. I don't know how much editing this is going to get done because I'm just playing with my dolls here, I guess. So, um, bringing it up to current day. So we bring it up to current day, and this is where I should probably explain some mechanics of how I think the World 2 server functions, and sort of explains how you get to play the broken script. I think, and this is personally how I believe it operates within the Broken November lore, like I've said, this is sort of a group thing, so I'm not exactly the authoritative source on everything, because it's a collaborative project. But I'm pretty sure that basically what happened is the server itself fragmented. And that means that when you join the server, it might send you to the original world save, which has been heavily corrupted, which is the World 2 save you can find in the mod files for the broken script, or it will generate a new world, which is what usually happens when you're playing the broken script. So enter that cool nerd. That cool nerd basically just likes exploring abandoned servers and finds the IP address for World 2, joins, and happens to end up in the same fragment as Wire. Now, you might have noticed earlier with the Hetzer breach incident that Wire seemed particularly interested in the idea of being able to escape or get someone out of World 2 using a vessel. So, now this is technically ongoing, so from here on out, I'm going to say that if somehow anyone who's following along is watching, anyone who's following along on the Tumblrs is watching this video, from here on out, it's going to be spoilers. Like, major spoilers. So, basically, Wire and that cool nerd go on an adventure to kill the Ender Dragon, mostly in order to best replicate the circumstances of the Hetzer breach for Wire. You know, there's an encounter with the broken end there. They probably go end busting and get an elytra and stuff, do bonding stuff, but eventually Wire is going to try to breach into that cool nerd's body. Mostly Ram. The details are hazy at this point, but basically it's going to involve putting Ram into that cool nerd's body, possibly Wire as well. Eventually, both Wire, that cool nerd, and Ram are going to be kicked out of the body. I'm pretty sure, no, I'm certain actually, that Ram, or like the fragment called Ram to Die, is going to die. Basically making it impossible to save Ram. Wire, of course, isn't too happy about this, and that cool nerd is... Let me pull it up, sorry. As you can see from this very high quality render, that cool nerd is going to end up becoming corrupted himself and stuck in the game. And as you can tell, probably not very happy with Wire. Although eventually Wire's going to escape, and at this point, I think, is where everyone's going to come together for World 2. For like sort of second World 2, where basically everyone's in the same spot in the same world. It's going to be great. But I think I should probably get back around to Hetzer, the Hetzer duo, Archer and Hetzer. So basically, Hetzer has sort of been off, you know, late, doing stuff with the nomoon.jar mod, sort of dealing with entities there, ends up beating it. But in the background, there's sort of like murmurings of like another Hetzercraft, which is going to be primarily based off the split self mod. And that's where we enter Beta Hetzer. Now, Beta Hetzer is a pretty interesting character. They've technically appeared on the blog, though not too much is very clear. Beta Hetzer is pretty much what's left of the original Hetzercraft, like body model, sort of like stitched back together by Integrity, designed to basically be an anti-Hetzer. because Hetzer is kind of overpowered. There's a whole entry on the Cubic Hauntings Committee, which is like a basically a Minecraft SCP foundation about Hetzercraft and admin Hetzer, and they're kind of OP. So Integrity creates Beta Hetzer. There's going to be a whole fighting. They're going to like fight and stuff. Beta Hetzer isn't going to die, primarily because Asterix and Beta Hetzer become friends. Mostly because Asterix probably finds it kind of hard to relate to the other Void entities and really closely confides in Beta Hetzer, and Beta Hetzer's like dependent on Asterix to like understand everything, kind of being stitched together from like an old Minecraft player model and stuff. So basically, Asterix is going to stop Archer and Hetzer from killing Beta Hetzer. Beta Hetzer's probably going to somewhat join the gang, at least be on the periphery. So you're going to end up with a gang kind of looking like this for World 2. And now World 2 is going to be where Overlord comes back into the picture. Now, Overlord, essentially, narratively, and like I said, again, massive spoilers here. Overlord, I essentially think of as the bad ending of Wire, or Wire Logs, Wire 4. Where basically, instead of giving up after that corner, the first breach failed, Overlord just kind of kept going with more and more fragments of Blackout, possibly Catfish, and basically just kept like assimilating kids and stuff. And it just never worked, but she never gave up. So she's basically going to be like a narrative foil to Wire. They're going to be fighting while Wire's still like dealing with all the guild and stuff. And if that wasn't enough, that Cool Nerd's also going to come back. Not entirely sure what happens here, but there'll probably be a lot of fight scenes. Archer and Hetzer, I think, are possibly going to fight Wire because they're going to be real mad. No one's going to be happy with Wire after what he's done to that Cool Nerd. It's uncertain if that Cool Nerd's going to team up on Overlord with the gang, or if you're going to have like 3 warring parties. It's going to be a whole thing. There is actually going to be another character that will show up at this point, but even with a spoiler warning, I'm not going to mention that character by name because, reasons. Yeah. Because it's a surprise even to most of the other people who are working on this Broken November collective writing project. Anyway, that's going to be the end of my insane ramblings for tonight. I'm really sorry I haven't been able to get a video out. I actually know what I'm going to do for episode 10 of the Let's Play now. It's just about finding motivation and time at the same point, really. Sorry you haven't been hearing much from me. Just getting used to being an adult, I guess. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. I've really wanted to be able to share like anything about this whole project on YouTube and just kind of get it out there for people to see for a while, because I think there's stuff people will enjoy here. I'll leave a link to all the Tumblrs that are currently involved in the project, or currently officially involved in the project, in the description. Yeah, thank you all for watching, even though this is completely different to literally anything I've ever done, and probably really sucks. But you know, I hope the profile picture gif of Walter White cooking wasn't too distracting. Yeah. Until next time, have a good one.